So if a school is viewing me as a professional and treating me as such, I'm going to stick around longer because I'm respected and I'm happy and I know I have time to go about my day and do my job that I'm good at.
Welcome to Talking About Kids. I am your host, R. Bradley Snyder, researcher, activist, and author of The 5 Simple Truths of Raising Kids. Do you know where the substitute teachers for your child's preschool come from? If you are like me, you might imagine that potential substitutes and administrators sit down and get to know each other, possibly over tea and finger sandwiches. My guest this episode, Paul Buckley, will tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. Paul explains that current staffing practices afford preschools and substitutes very little, if any, say in the match process, and offer few opportunities to build relationships and provide consistency. In the end, Paul believes that it is the children's development that suffers. So he used his experience as a preschool instructor and as a manager in a large tech firm to develop a different staffing process, which he named ratio staffing. Paul and I discussed the problem, how ratio staffing corrects it, and his tips for discerning whether a preschool is supporting its teachers and substitutes. Talking About Kids is sponsored in part by the Arizona Department of Health Services Must Stop Bullying campaign through its Title V Maternal and Child Health Program. For more information, go to muststopbullying.org. If the information in this episode changes how you think about staffing a preschool and improving outcomes for preschool students, well, it might do the same for other people that you know. So please like this episode and share it with your friends and colleagues. And now, the interview.
My first position working with children was through a park and rec department through the city of South San Francisco. And it was initially, you can call it maybe like I was 17, and so maybe teenage excitement or selfishness or whatever it may be, is my friends all work there. And so they said, hey, you should come check this out. It's really a lot of fun. I had a job at 13 already anyway, working for a photographer, my dad's friend. So I'd been working a little bit, but on my own.
Right.
So this was a chance to work with my friends, and it was after school care, and also was summer camp and winter camp and spring camp, school closure camps. And so I went there initially to have a good time with my friends, and check out this opportunity. And quickly, it became apparent the importance of the position to me. I don't think I had those words back then, necessarily, but I felt it. In my mind, it was clear this was not just a job. Maybe some of that was inherent or innate in my being, but also I think a big portion of that was my supervisor, our boss, Kelly Jo, was a fantastic woman and a fantastic manager, and she made it clear that this is an important position we have. We're caring for people, and we respect these people, and we're being welcomed into these families' lives. And so we're not, yes, it's a good time, we enjoy it, and we're here together, but it's not just some quote unquote job. We're caring for the lives of people. And so that really, something about that, being welcomed into
Right.
families and being able to help people, really felt right to me. And so from there, it took off, and then I began working with preschool age children as well. So I do preschool in the morning and then school age in the afternoon, and then moved into a full-time preschool teacher role later on in my career.
I I can't. I should actually count the number of previous guests on talking about kids that got their start working in a youth program or an after school program. It's a wonderful experience, and you do start to see what the impact is of that other adult in the lives of kids, somebody who's not their parent, that just gets to see them maybe in that different situation where they can connect with them. And of course, when you're a young person like that too, you're somewhere in between the kid's age and the parent's age. You're like this like middle adult, right? So it's fascinating. It's good stuff.
It's true. And thinking about it now, my first job at 13 as my dad's friend, he was such a huge
Mhm.
influence on my life and still is too. He was such a great mentor. And so you're right, that other adult, maybe it was again having had some years with him already, it was kind of in me then be to be another adult, for other people, even at that age.
And I know in that first kind of full-time experience that you had as an educator, you started to see how the institution treated its staff really impacted the quality of education there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I became a full-time preschool teacher, I was a lead teacher, and it was a large corporation that was maxing out ratios and ensuring their bottom line was there first and
Mm,
foremost. And it was really, really evident again because um, for me, I believe the ratio of adults to children is really kind of indicative of quality of care. I think the best adults and teachers, educators in the world can only do so much if you have a large
right.
number of people to look after, right? And so when you have a room of 24 3-year-olds and two adults, a 1 to 12 ratio, there's only so much you can do individually. You're kind of more directing traffic, and so that became apparent. That was the that was the goal of this organization, and there was also no real time to prep. There was no real prep time. You were expected to prep on your breaks, on your lunch, somehow, some way
Mm.
at home. You were just expected to get it done with no real support from the management. And that to me was really an indicator of there being a kind of a lack of thought or care or concern for the teachers, but therefore for the children, in my mind. Because if the teachers aren't treated certain ways, if the teachers aren't allowed to prep and be prepared, um, it just adds another layer of stress and unnecessary complexity to the day, I believe.
Well, school climate is so interesting. Like we know for some really good studies that schools that have like, lower levels of bullying, lower levels of behavior problems also have lower staff turnover. So, and
Mm.
there's a chicken and an egg thing going on there, which I'm sure you can appreciate. Is it the fact that the teachers are more stable, more secure in that environment, so they are able then to create an environment that is more positive for the kids? Is it the fact that the kids are interacting in that environment in a more positive way that makes it easier for the teachers to stay there? Yeah, obviously, I think most people that study this think that they go hand in hand, right? Um, but it's so interesting, especially you've in reading your materials. I know that you also paid attention to kind of the bench. Who was being recruited to fill open slots at that school, and who could you bring in when there was the need for a substitute?
That's right, and I definitely love hearing that there's the studies and the research out there, right? And this idea of they do go hand in hand, and the idea of can is co-regulation
Mhm.
possible if the adult doesn't have the space to
Right.
regulate? That's not, and so and certainly at organizations that had the opportunity to have an additional floater or someone on staff to come in and sub, you see that difference, right? Now, obviously, not every school can
Right.
do that. Not every school can afford to do that, and that's understandable. I don't expect every school to afford an additional staff member, um, but those schools that had a proactive plan of what to do when someone was out, you would see a difference. And the reason why I say the schools that have a proactive plan is because you may not be able to afford to have someone full time on staff, but you do have the time to potentially think about a plan for the future. Um, and so I think that to me is certainly a difference, right? And is the organization as a whole thinking about their teachers? Are they thinking about what to do in the event of? Do they have plans in place? Are they thinking about it? And to me, the thought of the teacher is paramount, to a successful day for the children, because in education, it's not simply, in my opinion, it's not simply labor
Right.
hours, right? There are emotional hours attached to it. So there's lots of intangibles involved that go a long way, and you can't always quantify those in a spreadsheet, right? It's a feel, and it's an environment that's created.
Well, and you want some of that too. I mean, you want teachers who are invested. You want them to tap into the energy of the school. And all the teachers I know, they may leave campus at a certain time every day, but they are always thinking about their class and working on it and going above and beyond the in um, learning that is provided for them. So, but something that I also learned from you is that how some education institutions engage with their staffing company will really affect how and what kind of, like, how they can engage with potential new hires and how they can engage with substitute teachers and in ways that are kind of um, I'm not going to say counterintuitive, but really kind of undermine the school's ability to really get the best people into their school sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, the kind of standard substitute staffing agency model really is counterproductive in my experience, and seeing it in action, and from hearing feedback from dozens and dozens of schools, and dozens of teachers who are involved in the process. It really, what's happened is they've kind of supplanted a standard kind of staffing model on education, and in particular early childhood
Okay.
education. And that model entails the staffing agency employing the sub and essentially leasing them out to the preschool at a high hourly wage, which is charged to the school. And so it becomes a financial burden on the preschools.
Mm.
More importantly, it becomes this kind of emotional and burden and a roadblock to teachers and children and schools connecting, because if at some point the school wants to retain that teacher for their own staff, they have to buy the teacher out of their contract,
Ah,
which the schools can't afford,
okay.
right? And oftentimes the preschool teacher is unaware of this price, on them, on their head almost. And so the schools also have no say in who shows up in their school,
Mm.
just like the teacher has no say in in where they go. So what ends up happening is you hear feedback from schools, about the teacher kind of just being a body in the
Right.
room, right? And and they don't know what's going on. The school is like, well, at least we hit our ratios. We're in our ratios, so legally we're safe. But I wish this person would do X, Y, and Z. Well, what happens often is the teacher has no experience with that age group, or has no experience with that philosophy, but they have to go where they're told.
Right.
So they very well may be a fantastic teacher in a different age group, but the feedback is there's just someone in the room. So it really makes this negative kind of cycle. It really creates a negative cycle, and it really becomes counterproductive, to schools and teachers connecting. And so we try to solve that, and try at least relieve some of that concern and some of those situations with our model.
And I want to get at your model, but I just want to emphasize this point a little bit because I think that, a lot of people, and, I've talked to people who've considered going into substitute teaching as a second career. Early on in my career, I got hooked up with an agency that did teacher training, and I was put on the roster of teacher trainers. And so I know just a little bit of this, but you hear people, the promise of substitute teaching is you can be more flexible, You
Right.
can, try out schools, see what fits, where if you don't wanna work this week or you don't wanna work on Fridays, you don't have to do that. But that's not the case at all, is it? There's a subtle, there's like this subtle authoritarianism to how substitute teachers get deployed, isn't there?
There really is. Yeah, it's actually not the
Yeah.
case, especially in early child education, because you're given an assignment. If you decline the assignment, you get docked
Yeah.
points by one large staffing firm in
Mhm.
particular. Also, in the event you find a school that you want to stay at and they can't afford to buy you out, you figure, okay, well, I'll just quit the staffing firm and go work at the school that I love, where the kids
Yeah.
love me and the school wants me. Well, unfortunately, you can't do that
Right.
either, because if the staffing agency learns that you were hired at a school you subbed at within a certain timeline, they still charge the school the buyout
Yeah.
fee. So it's really not flexible, actually. Also, they promote the idea of you getting benefits, the teachers getting benefits, and these kinds of things like a regular full time employee, but you don't unless you hit a certain number of hours in the fiscal year, which you're not going to make because there's either not that many hours available, or number two, most importantly, that's not why you got into the
Yeah.
subbing in the first place. Either don't have that many hours available to work, or it's not in your
Right.
current plan for your life. And so you actually don't get these things as advertised, which to me is morally an issue
Yeah.
for me. I don't believe in this idea of fooling people and restricting people. And for me, I believe in we win together. There's enough for everyone, and let's work together to win together. Is what I believe. To me, it's not a way of life or conducting business where I'm restricting and keeping and holding on to and not sharing. I guess, for lack of a better term.
Well, and I wanna I wanna make sure that we touch on this important part of your professional development, which is at some point you left education and kind of worked in technology. You're based in the Bay Area roughly, and you because that's what people do out there. You had an opportunity to work in, a technology field. And what did you learn about education from being in the technology world?
Yeah, I went to the largest biotech firm in the world, which is out near San Francisco. I'm based in San Francisco, and I quickly learned that everything I needed to know about working with people, I learned teaching children.
Right.
I was suddenly in this manufacturing environment, working with a team of people, and I was quickly promoted when I got there. I think because of my team values and my ability and my desire to work as a team and win together. And once I was promoted, I was then in charge of managing groups of people, hiring and interviewing and increasing output and that kind of thing. And I learned a lot of different things while there. But the one thing that to me was the clearest was that my time working with children and my experience, um, my professional development working with children was all I
Yeah.
needed to be able to manage people effectively, because the same rules
Mhm.
apply, right, for a child and an adult, and especially groups, And so um, my teams and I were very close, and we were very professional, and we got a lot done because because you had that intangible feeling and that additional effort because someone's happy and they feel safe at work and they feel safe in the team.
Yeah.
And I learned all that working with children. And my wife and I always joke, and maybe it won't be a joke at some point, but we always joke about writing the book, right? Which I'm sure there's some out there already. This idea, though, of everything I learned about life, or I learned about working in corporations, I learned while
Yeah.
teaching children and teaching preschoolers, um, and so I learned, and so what ended up happening was I learned so many new skills there, though technical skills, as far as SOPs and processes and efficiency gains and that kind of thing. And my experience working with children, and then my experience at the biotech firm, ended up being a perfect marriage of skills, it
Mhm.
turned out, for what I do now. And that was not the plan. That was not the plan. It kind of came to be. And so I'm really just grateful for the opportunities I've had to learn from other people in the world.
And of course, you're talking about the company you founded, Ratio Staffing. So tell me about Ratio Staffing and what makes it different.
Yeah, I think on a technical level, what makes it different is you're allowed to you have the opportunity and the ability to connect with substitute teachers, enrichment teachers, and speech pathologists in real time. So there's real time availability. There's direct connection. There's nothing in the way for you to connect with them directly. So technically, I think it's different in that way. It's also different in the sense that there's only preschools on the
Okay.
platform and early childhood educators only. So there's no additional noise. There's only the ECE world on the platform. I think what makes it different intangibly or outside of that is that it really is born from the ECE world.
Mm.
I'm a previous preschool teacher. My wife is a preschool teacher and a parent educator. Um, and she's in the classroom still. She received her BA and her MA in ECE and loves being in the classroom. So she's in the classroom. And we have friends and family are in the world still. So it really is born of the ECE world with the sole intent and purpose of benefiting the children via benefiting the adults, right, in the world. So I think to me, in that way, it's different. And there are no buyout fees if you want to retain a substitute. There are no blackout dates. It's full transparency. There's no games. There's no hiding anything on our platform. And so I think in that way, it's very different, especially it being kind of made for us and by us. I think is very different as well. Um, and I'm really excited about it because it just there's so much benefit,
Right.
for to me, I feel like I want to bring some calm to someone's day. I want to bring calm to the
I mean,
world.
to play devil's advocate, I mean, I think that we can imagine that if you're a staffing agency in this space, that one of the reasons that you work so hard to retain, the people that you have working for you, that you send out to these different schools, is because if a school contacts you and you can't provide them with a substitute, they're going to a different agency, right? So how do you deal with that problem, and why aren't you more afraid of it?
Right. Yeah. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. I think because again, for me, it's about the idea of there's enough in the world, and my role is to help you connect with those people. And those people
Mm,
exist, and I think everyone should be allowed to go where they want to go and where their home is. And so I don't believe this idea of retaining and restricting is helping them or the industry or my business.
okay.
Right? I believe what helps the business is helping people have their freedom that they're entitled to. Right? With our platform, the schools get to choose and decide who comes in, and the substitute gets to say yes or no as well. They get to decide where they go. No one tells them where to go or when to go. So I'm not afraid of losing people, quote unquote, because they're not
Mm.
mine. Right? I don't own them. They don't belong to me. They have their own life, right, and their own control as they should. And so I believe there's plenty of people and opportunity out there. And so I'm not worried about it because I think we'll have enough. I think we'll have more than enough people to meet the demand. And we all know the demand is there. And so I believe the supply will be there too. So I'm not really concerned with
Mm.
that. And again, maybe I should be, but it's not how I live. I can't,
No, I mean,
I can't do
I
it.
think it's a really interesting. I believe in it, right? I believe that if people who are working with you now, when they talk about their experience, I think that they are probably describing it in a way that attracts more people to this model. I'm just curious, and this is kind of a different aside, though. In the old, or really the status quo model, we should say, because still most people are in that stuck in that model. There are teacher profiles. I know teachers create profiles and schools have profiles, but to your point, they almost don't matter. If you are contracted with this service, they're going to send you, you're going to just ask for somebody and you're going to get somebody. There's not a whole lot of picking among available candidates in that model. Ha- the profiles that the educators that work through you create, are they different? Have you noticed there's a difference in the kind of profile they create? The converse is, what about the profiles that these schools are creating? Have you noticed a difference?
Yeah, I think there is a difference for sure because one, with a number of the agencies, the schools aren't allowed to have a profile.
Mm,
So the teachers don't even see what schools the agency is working with. So they have no idea who their client list is because they hide that, right?
wow.
And so with ours, the teachers can search the schools and look at school profiles and save their favorite schools. Because also on our platform, you can apply to a job posting. It's not only direct connection,
Okay.
which is huge, but preschools can post an opening as well. Because not I understand that every school wants a substitute or needs a substitute. Some schools never need them, but every school needs to hire at some
Right.
point. And so on our platform, the school can make a profile and post a job, and schools and teachers, I mean, can apply to those jobs as well. And so, yes, it is different because schools actually have a profile. And for the teacher profile, it's different because when a school calls a standard agency, they don't see anything either. They just call and say, we need someone, and then they just send you somebody. So the school doesn't get to review anything. And even in other agency formats where they'll have someone who's like your special agent assigned to you, who gets to know you, and then they find the sub that they think will fit best with
Mm,
you, they very well may be good at that, but they're still not
right.
you. The school knows best, number one. Number two, that's an additional cost being placed upon the
Okay.
school because that agent has to be the agent's compensated as well. So again, our platform removes that. And the teacher profiles show the things I think schools care about: age group experience, philosophy experience, years of experience, education, their resume, right? So you can really see, does this profile match my school's philosophy and my environment, my unique school environment? And then if it does, you can call
Right.
them, have a chat, and see if it works.
One of the things, and as much as I am a empiricist as a researcher, I'm a quantitative guy, like big
Yeah.
studies, big numbers, lots of measurement. I also love these rules of thumb. I have them when I'm evaluating a school, or in my previous work evaluating juvenile prisons. I had my rules of thumb. When I would walk in, I could tell before I started looking through the files what I might find when I actually got into the data, right? And you have some rules of thumbs for how parents can tell whether a
Hmm.
preschool that they are visiting is supporting its teachers and staff properly. Tell me about those.
Yeah, certainly. Number one, like I mentioned earlier, for me, first and foremost, is there prep time for the teachers? When's the prep time? Is it built into the
Mm,
schedule? How is it handled, right? Are the teachers given the opportunity to prep and feel prepared for their day and for those children? For a number of reasons. Again, obviously, from the technical side and from the literal, practical side, I should say, you have to feel ready and have your materials and things in your room set up. But more importantly, again, it's an emotional
mm,
feeling, right? Is the teachers feel respected? Teachers are treated as professionals like they should be. So if a school is viewing me as a professional and treating me as such, I'm going to stick around
right.
longer because I'm respected and I'm happy and I know I have time to go about my day and do my job that I'm good at, right? So that for sure. Again, number two would be, how are they handling staff
Mm,
outages? They work with a staffing agency. If so, which one? What's their plan for outages? Because I've gotten feedback from schools, and we were hearing it from schools early on in our substitute when our substitute model first came out. We were hearing from schools almost immediately that their teachers were so happy that they were working with us and they were taking time off. They were using their vacation, their sick time, and taking care of themselves because they knew someone was there to cover. they knew their children would have a teacher there.
Mm.
And so it really improved the health of their staff and the environment because teachers get to use the hours they earned as they should to take time off. And so I think it's important for parents to find that out as well. And a third rule of thumb would be for me, again, we tell our friends and people who ask us, how do you feel when you're there? Do you feel like you want your children
Right.
around these teachers? Does it feel right for you? And again, that's something that maybe is hard to measure, of course, but do you feel right
Right.
there? Does it feel like the right place for you? If you feel like it's the right place for you, it most likely is. And so you should go with your feeling, but also ensuring that there's a framework and a structure there for those teachers watching your child.
That last one is so interesting, especially as parents move into upper grades. A lot of the schools I work with um, experience trouble with parents feeling having such strong negative feelings about the school. The school has done nothing to compensate for how the parents might have felt when they were a kid at that school. And these parents come on the campus, they come on hot, right? Sometimes, or
Right.
sometimes they stay away entirely because being on that campus brings them, like awakens feelings that they had about bad experiences they had in the school, and the schools just don't take enough time. I know we're talking about
Yeah.
preschool, but even then, if the preschool is making those parents feel welcome, chances are they also know how to make the kids feel welcome. I think you're exactly right. It goes hand in hand. And if they're auditioning a school, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
and you are trying to get more schools to use ratio staffing. So if they're at a if you're a parent and you're at a preschool and you know that you like this preschool, but you know that they're struggling with staffing, how can they reach out to ratio staffing?
Yeah, they can go to the website racialstaffing.com, and there's a contact form there. And we get them immediately and respond right away. So they're always welcome to contact us directly. We have a phone number on there as well. They can call. Um, and also, for those educators who are looking potentially to have a profile or want to explore or want to see what it's about, it's easy to make a profile. It's free for educators, of course. There's no cost to educators. And for schools, we also do have promotional codes, of course, and promos. And especially for your listeners, if there's any schools out there looking to get on board and check it out, if they use the promo code aboutkids at checkout, you get an additional 30 days trial. So it's an extended 60-day free trial if you use the promo code aboutkids. Again, because we care about
Hmm.
connection. So I want it easy, and I want people to explore, and I don't want there to be pressure and feeling like you have to use this thing or you have to pay right away, and there's no chance to take your time and really get into it. It's not what we're for. We're for people connecting and taking their time and exploring. So if your school needs support with staffing,
Yeah.
yes, you're welcome to refer them to Ratio Staffing. The schools can reach out, and then we can always have a meeting before they sign up too. I always love meeting new schools and connecting and having a chat before they do anything.
Well, Paul, I want to thank you so much for putting your experience, all of your experiences, to work to make preschools better for all of our kids. And thanks for being a guest on Talking About Kids.
Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
That was Paul Buckley. Go to talkingaboutkids.com for more information about Paul and for a link to Ratio Staffing, where, for a limited time, listeners can get an extended 60-day free trial for a preschool by using the promo code ABOUTKIDS at checkout. That's lowercase a BOUTKIDS. The Talking About Kids theme song is by The Senators. For more of their music, go to thesenatorsmusic.com. And remember, kids are young goats and young humans. And the difference is that young goats are easier to manage.